Are we live yet? We are live. Hello.
Good
We are
evening.
doing Crackin The Crab. I'm introducing it right now. Um, I am Brian Roten. My pronouns are he, him. I'm from Short Issues Podcast, in which I ask politicians hard questions and talk to you about chicken farms. My co-host with me, Tyler Jones Jr., and Lower Shore Progressive Caucus, Jared Schablin. How are you, gentlemen?
I'm doing well. I'm not used to seeing you be so excited and just jumping on in. You're excited tonight. I like it.
I can't explain it because this has been like the most stressful week of my life, like literally, and I don't know how I'm here. We're just doing the thing, though. Same as any other day. We're just filling up the room right now. So, Jared, tell me, has it been hot as hell down there in Wacomico? Have you been able to canvass? Have you been able to do any campaign work? What's going on down there?
So I was actually in Deal Island this week in Winoka, which is the islands down in Somerset County. So I was right on the Chesapeake canvassing this week in the evening, so it wasn't too hot. I did get a nice horsefly bite on my hand though, but if that's what it takes to win, then that's what it takes to win.
What did you get in
Uh,
your hand?
a horse bite, a horsefly bite.
Oh, a
Those.
horsefly. Okay, damn.
Yeah, he decided he was going to come over, land on me, bite me, then fly away. I guess that's their way of saying hi.
Right. Yeah. Yep. What about you, Tyler?
Every day's a
What you
good
been up
day. I'm busy as always,
to?
uh, but I think I prefer it that way. So no complaints from me.
Okay.
So Tyler, before we jump into our guest speaker tonight, and I know we have an amazing guest speaker. There's two quick house note things I want to mention. First and foremost, I want to congratulate the Delmar Little League softball team for winning the Purple Division. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m. on ESPN, they are going to be playing for the national championship in softball. So we definitely wish the Delmar Wildcats well in their game. The other thing I want to mention is Friday of this week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is the Wacomico County Fair. So I'm definitely hoping folks are going to be wanting to come hang out with the LSPC at our table and potentially volunteer for a shift.
Sounds good. I know you had some housekeeping stuff too, Brian. What's on your mind?
No, I was just saying, Waterman's Appreciation Day was today here in St. Michael's. Pretty big event for St. Michael's, one of the biggest of the year. Hogan is usually here, but he's like somewhere in Iowa, not campaigning for president, but he's just in Iowa, or something. He usually does the boat docking competition and will lasso the pilings and stuff like that. I wasn't able to go today because of some other obligations. But it's a pretty big event for St. Michael's. Heather Muser was there. So were a lot of the county council candidates. So a lot of Dem representation there. Not for me this year, though, unfortunately. But look for those
Hey,
pictures on
Brian,
social media. What?
are you excited about a Hogan candidacy for president? Because you
I'm
just you
I want to make a lot of memes about it. I can make some really good memes already about Hogan like canceling like all sorts of infrastructure like all over, and then like buying all the fake COVID tests from Korea. If we have another like wave of a subvariant come around, we could do all that. There will be spicy memes. I guarantee that being made.
But can anything really top the John Delaney, like, going down that slide, having absolutely no fun meme? You know what I'm talking about?
John Delaney? What do you mean?
Yeah, when he went to Iowa, there's a picture of him. You know, when you grab the little top and you go down the slide, like the little potato sack that's cut out, and you go down.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he goes down one of that, and everyone's smiling and having a good time, and he's just sitting there with a blank expression on your face. You should definitely Google it. It is hysterical.
Okay, I'll have to check that. But yeah, Hogan's mad this week. We'll talk about that a little later on. But I think it's a pretty good time that we should introduce our special guest speaker. Literally one of my favorite people in the world, who I campaigned for in the primaries, Ashwani Jain. Can we bring him on screen?
Hello, hello.
Ashwani.
Hey, Ashwani, how are you?
Good, good. Thanks so much for having me. And Brian, much love and appreciation as always.
I meant every word. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
which
Yeah,
one of you
so-
guys want to start? Because I have questions, but I'm willing to wait if you guys.
Can I go? Hey, I want to know what happens when people lose primaries. Do they have to go and like brood in their in their room for like weeks on end and like opine very deeply about why I'm not the one? What happens? I want to know, Ashwani.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is I go on this search to find, some cool shades and just kind of keep up with Brian. But I'm not at that level yet. No, but I mean, listen, for any candidate, especially if you're doing it sincerely with like good intentions, it definitely hurts to lose. And so a lot of it is, kind of doing a deep dive of, okay, were there things I could have done better? And then just catch up on like normal life, like sleep and family and friends, and get a new routine together. But for me, I guess specifically, when I launched the campaign for governor in January of 2021, I said from the get-go, I had two goals in mind, right? The first was to win. And then the second was to actually create a template that can change our politics for generations to come and actually make it inclusive and accessible. So obviously we didn't accomplish the first goal of coming in first place, but we were able to create that blueprint. And so now the last couple of weeks have really been spent, me figuring out how can I use the platform and the team of volunteers that we have and the policies we developed to help Democrats win in November. So, I offered my services to the Moore and Miller team, to the Maryland Democratic Party, and to really any candidate across this state who needs help, who would like my advice or, like any of the platforms that I have, just so we can continue the movement and the momentum that, we were lucky enough to build on our team.
You mentioned, you've reached out to any of your services to the Moore campaign and the party. Has either the party or the Moore campaign, reached out to you about potentially joining the administration or joining the party in some capacity? I understand if you can't, give specifics, but is that something that you could foresee happening?
Yeah, I mean, I've been really clear on my end that, I would love to help out the party, win in November. And, once we hopefully get Moore and Miller elected as governor and lieutenant governor, I would definitely be open to working in their administration if they feel that's the best way I can be of service. So I've been very clear on that. And we've definitely had different conversations, but nothing specific. Right now, it's all of just, how can I volunteer my time and volunteer my resources? Because again, all the policies that I was advocating for, all of the things that we were pushing for, it's a really clear-cut decision in terms of who needs to get elected in November up and down the ballot. And so I don't want our work and my work just to be diminished, just because it didn't work out in the way that I thought it would have.
Tyler, I know you have the next question, but before you jump in, I just want to let folks know on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, feel free to join the conversation. Put your questions in the chat. We'll put them up on screen. I know Ashwani would definitely love to answer them. All right, Tyler, sorry to step on your toes there.
No, man, that's perfectly fine. But I actually want to start from the beginning because I didn't find out about you, Ashwani, until later on in your campaign. So just for some of the people at home, number one, start with your age and then let us know what actually got you interested in politics.
Yeah, so I actually just turned 33 on Friday, on August 12th. But I was 32 for the whole campaign.
Happy birthday. Happy belated birthday, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate
Happy belated.
it. Thank you. I feel much older now. No, not really. But yeah, I ran for Maryland governor to really make our politics inclusive and accessible. And I'm proud to say that I was the youngest person to ever run for governor of Maryland. And we built a team of over 750 volunteers. And we were successfully able to build the most accessible, most accountable, and most transparent statewide campaign in the United States. We were the first to be entirely crowdsourced, meaning no staff, no consultants, everything on the campaign, to the policies, the graphics, the strategies, even the ties that I wore on the campaign trail. Everything was literally made in partnership between me and the residents who are going to be impacted by all those decisions. And so, it was a great campaign. I'm really proud of everything that we built, and people like Brian who were helping out and actually building a 24 county approach where we were door knocking and really connecting with residents one-on-one. It was really exciting. In terms of what got me interested or involved in politics in the first place, that goes back to when I was 13 years old and diagnosed with a type of cancer. Going through that experience at any age, let alone when you're 13, it really puts perspective into your life. And during that moment, I honestly felt hopeless. I felt powerless. I didn't know why I was going to leave the four walls of that hospital room. And I felt very depressed and suicidal because people were making decisions about my life without including me in those conversations. And my first outlet or entryway into feeling empowered and that I actually have a purpose in life was two things: the Make-A-Wish Foundation, which granted my wish, and then a couple years after that, the first Obama campaign for president, where again I felt empowered and maybe I can use all this crap that happened to me in my life, but also channel it in a positive way and help others who might be going through something similar. So that was kind of the entryway, and it's been a great journey ever since.
So I don't know if we can get that back up on screen, Tyler, but I did want to highlight Council Member Todd Knock of Pocomoke. So he is the Democratic nominee for the House of Delegates in District 38A. He is also endorsed by the LSPC. I have a question similar to that, but it's not my turn. But I did want to highlight Todd, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yeah, it's your turn.
Yeah, so I've said before that you've done the most amount of personal canvassing of any of the candidates. Definitely, I think you get that crown. Since you've canvassed over here quite a lot, what's like some of the most common grievances, common stories that you hear from people on the Eastern Shore?
Yeah, I mean, not including our volunteers, I personally knocked on more than 35,000 doors across the state of Maryland, and in all 24 counties consistently. I was in a different county every day of the week for about a year and a half. And, one of the things that I've seen is throughout the Eastern Shore, but really throughout the state of Maryland, especially given how diverse we are, ethnically, racially, geographically, I saw that regardless of what type of area you lived in, whether it's a rural area, an urban area, a city, a farm, on the shore, you name it, a red county, a blue county, most residents, outside of the rhetoric and outside of what you see on the news, most real residents just want candidates and politicians who respect them, who have a similar lived experience, who speak about issues in a comprehensive way, and are actually giving them a real, genuine seat at the table and respecting them. The same kind of talking points that you often hear in every election, but so many residents and voters didn't actually feel that way from candidates up and down the ballot in both parties. And I think that's why they connected with our campaign and our message, is because we were doing something that was beyond the talking points. But at the end of the day, when you remove the rhetoric, most people just want similar things and are really focused on the issues and appreciate when people show up and don't forget about them because they live in a part of the state that isn't, super dense with voters, so to speak.
Yeah, I wanted to say the volunteer that I did the day, primary day, was just a lady who wasn't like had real strong ties to the Democrat Party or anything like that. She was just so impressed that you had come to her door, that you put her into action, and we ended up doing that whole day in front of the Easton Firehouse. And it's really cool when you mobilize people who are not really involved with local Democrats or local activism in any sort of way, but you just inspire that. I want to know, how many votes did you end up getting at the end of the day?
Yeah, so I'm proud to say we were close to, I think it was like 15,000 votes by the end of it, which is, just super humbling and super exciting, especially, given all the things that we were going against and the name recognition and other great candidates as well. But again, for me, it was not necessarily just the number of votes that we got. It was the types of votes, the fact that they were from all 24 counties. We actually changed some Republicans to become Democrats to vote for us. And again, we built this platform now, this base and this blueprint and framework that my hope is that every candidate across the country can now use, because it's never been done before in that way. That, yeah, you actually can crowdsource a campaign. You actually can do that without ever hosting a fundraiser, without ever taking money from businesses, PACs, or polluters, and by empowering residents in a way that they may not have been empowered in the past.
So, interesting question. So the funniest story about, and this just is a testament to how many doors you knock. The big story about you door knocking down here is you actually knocked on the door of the Democratic nominee for State Senate, Michelle Gregory. That's actually how you all met, when you knocked on the door.
Yep.
I remember she mentioned that at an event before. I believe it was the night you doing the forum, but kind of in that same vein, I know. Councilmember Knock and Michelle and other folks down here on the Eastern Shore who are nominees in close races who aren't getting that much support from the statewide. Would you be interested? Would you be willing? I know you mentioned that you uh, would be willing to work with Wes on the party. Would you be willing to come back to the show and help candidates here?
1000%. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to have an offline conversation as well. But yeah, I'm happy to spread the word with all of the networks and volunteers that we have built. I'm happy to share policies. All my policies have been public online anyway, and they're really practical, extremely detailed. So if candidates want to use those, that's open as well. And I'm also happy to, make time myself as well and knock on doors and just be a surrogate, right? And really elevate their issues and their campaigns. Because at the end of the day, we really are trying to work on similar issues. And so, yeah, that's a long way of saying 100%, put me to work. I definitely want to be as helpful as I can.
Tyler, do you mind if I ask a follow-up real quick?
Go ahead.
So like you mentioned, your policies are very in-depth. Like if of all the candidates, you give the website use is probably the most in-depth. Have you had anything, whether it's, as high as the Moore campaign or down to like, I don't know, a county council race, have you started to see candidates are starting to adopt some of your policy platforms and run on them?
Yeah, I'm actually really proud to say that at least half of the other governor candidates that I was running with started adopting my policies earlier this year. A lot of candidates started using them in debates, in their questionnaires, when they were seeking endorsements, because we were the first statewide campaign to release a host of issues and really detailed policies on those. And so I was proud that we were able to create at least some sort of template and framework for others to use. And I know when I speak with other candidates, at more local levels, they've definitely taken those versions and then try to customize it even more to their specific district or area. So, yeah, I mean, I hope more people use it because, these are policies that have been tested, have been proven, are showed how they can be paid for. And every policy, all the 150 plus policies we've shared, were made by residents, not consultants, not political insiders, but those on the ground who are impacted by those decisions. And what I always tell candidates and other, party folks as well is that allows these policies to be implemented and enforced in a much more equitable and sustainable way, because we really got to the nitty-gritty details of a lot of these policies and issues.
Honestly, can we just give this man a round of applause? Like just for a moment. And I might be the only one clapping for you, but listen here. You ran an entire campaign with no fundraisers. No fundraisers. And when you talk about this, you said earlier, hey, I very rarely get to sleep. I'm happy to get to sleep now. Building that network is not something easy to do. How were you able to build such a network and connect with so many people throughout the entire state?
Well, I appreciate that. It was tough, right? And I started the campaign with only 5 volunteers, and it was a daily process. Nothing was given to us. Nothing was taken for granted. I really put in that work, and through the organic growth, right? And through the sincerity and empathy and the knowledge of policies, and actually spending 90% of my time canvassing and really just giving people a shot, saying, hey, whether you are a high schooler or whether you're someone who's retired, you've never been able to have a one-on-one with a governor candidate without spending a lot of money or, having a certain amount of time commitment. But if you want to make policies with me, let's talk about what those policies can be. If you want to actually help cut turf, if you want to, create phone bank lists, if you want to create graphics, all the things that are typically reserved for insiders, for consultants, for staff members, we just opened up that process. And yes, it takes a lot more coordinating and organizing, right? Because now I'm coordinating these things with, 10, 20, 100 different people. But that's what I spent my time doing instead of being on the phone, asking people for money or hosting fundraisers. So I just diverted the same time that every campaign has into those aspects, hoping that it would work, because I really was tired of doing politics the same way and not getting enough results, right? I was tired of waiting for others to change a broken system, in my opinion, where you have all these people in power for all these years, and none of them were either willing or able to make politics genuinely more inclusive and accessible. And so I said, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it my way. I'm going to do it the way that people will actually respect and always wish that campaigns would be run like. and we're just gonna take it day by day and not take anything for granted.
All right. Just 1 minute. I want to acknowledge Councilmember Knock once more. Councilmember Knock, if you want to join, send me a message, send it to myself or send it to LSPC. We'll send you the link. And I
Yeah,
appreciate that because
one quick question. I also want to highlight Claire, our new community outreach chair. She put the claps in the chat. Definitely want to highlight her as well. So again, jumping on your toes, Tyler.
no, it's all right. I'm ready to pass it back to Brian because Brian
Yeah.
looks a little antsy right now.
Yeah, I am. I really want to know, what are some of your resolutions about your campaign? Like, what worked, what didn't work? Would you do all the same? Would you do some things differently? How do you feel now?
Honestly, and I've been doing a lot of thinking, I would not change a single thing because I genuinely wanted to run a campaign that was bigger than just one election. And the only way that I could have won if I did something different would be to do the same kinds of things that every candidate does, right? Host fundraisers, just try to raise more money so that I can, do the typical things. But I would not have been proud or happy of myself if I went back to politics as normal because it went against the entire motivation and reason and intent of why I did this in the first place and what I hope to continue doing. So I wouldn't change anything. When I speak with other residents and other friends of mine, one of the common things that I keep hearing back is it wasn't the way I ran the campaign. It wasn't specific policies. It honestly just came down in their mind to my age. So many of these people said, yeah, you outperformed in every debate. You did have the most policy details. You actually did go out in every part of the state, which is very rare for at least a governor candidate to do. But, even though you have accomplished all these things, you're still only 32. I'm like, well, I can't really control my age. I still have the experience that's equivalent to someone twice my age. But given the fact that I was able to check all these other boxes for folks, that I think proves to me that, oh yeah, it actually did work. And it's just kind of keeping the needle moving. And the last thing I'll say on this is anytime anyone does something that's against a system or against the status quo, whenever you're trying to make history or really impact a system, it's going to take a while, right? This is not going to change overnight. And I'm very cognizant of that. So I'm happy that the work still doesn't stop.
So what was your, I guess this would be a two-part question. So first things first, what was your best county where you got the most part of the vote? I believe it was Western Maryland last time I checked. That was like with 87% of the vote in. So, things could have drastically changed. But what was your best county?
Yeah, I haven't looked at the specific numbers after that. But no, I was proud to say that, when I started, a lot of folks just assumed I was only going to get votes from Montgomery County, which is where I was born and raised and still live. But the fact that we had a good showing in Western Maryland, in Eastern Shore, in parts of Southern Maryland, I think, again, that goes back to the volunteers that we had and the way that we campaigned. So, again, I cannot be more proud and just humbled by all of it. And hopefully, people can look at me and our campaign, whether you're young or whether you're part of a marginalized community or rural community, and look at the fact that, yeah, this can be done. And if you do have an opinion, if you do want your voice to be heard and you're willing to put in your homework, and if you have specific ideas, just because you don't have the money or the name doesn't mean that you cannot be successful and you should not go for it. So that hope is my hope, is that people take away some lessons from what I did, and it hopefully inspires them to also make their voice heard. Because I tell people this all the time, whether you care about politics or not, whether you are involved or not, these politicians are making decisions about your life. So you need to get up, you need to do your research, and you need to demand a seat at the table if it's not given to you.
And my second part is, outside of Wes, because we know he's a great candidate, great guy, like he's going to be our next governor. We're going to work hard. Who was one of your favorite other candidates to, work with or get to know? Our organization backed John, but outside of John, we really enjoyed interacting with Jerome Siegel just because, good guy, amazing character. So did you have a relationship with anyone else, you were running against, kind of like we did with Jerome or some of the other folks running?
Yeah, and real fast, I see that Jennifer Bingley's on here as well, and hey Jennifer, yeah, I
It's
mean,
true. Your mom is amazing, by the way. She's so sweet.
I was very fortunate. Yeah, I have the best parents, and my mom was able to make her way throughout the state with me sometimes, so that was fun. Um, no, I'm really excited to say that almost all of the other governor candidates that I was running with, they all really were very kind, very generous people. They all were very encouraging of me as well. I have a lot of. Francho was always super kind to me. Rashawn Baker was always super kind. Wes Moore obviously was really nice. John Barron, Jerome Siegel. It was a really good group of folks that we had, and I'm proud to say also that in Maryland, unlike maybe in some other states where you only have one or two candidates or some good candidates, we actually had a really good bench of folks. And yeah, we had some differences here and there, but we all actually believe in virtually almost the same stuff. Most of these folks and their team members were actually very generous, sincere, kind people, at least behind the scenes as well, which was really nice to see.
Hey everybody, Council Member Todd Knock is also in the back. He's waiting to join us. Before I bring him on stage, I'm going to go to this 30-second ad break, so just bear with us. We'll be right back in a moment.
Okay, Westmore, nothing ever seems to change. What'll be different with you?
You're right. And nothing will change with the same ideas coming from the same people. My background is different. I've led soldiers in combat. I've led one of the nation's largest poverty-fighting organizations. I know what it means to tackle big challenges with urgency. And we will make sure that we have the best schools in this nation. We will make sure people feel safe in their own neighborhoods. We will close the racial wealth gap, and we will leave no one behind.
All right, everyone, welcome back. We're joined by Council Member Todd Knock, who I assume has some questions for you as well, Ashwani Jain. So I'm going to pass my question and turn it over to Council Member Knock.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Jain, how you doing?
How you doing, sir?
I'm good. Brian, how you doing? Jared, Tyler, it's good to see you guys again.
It's always good to see you, Todd.
The best.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. So, Mr. Jain, let me start off by saying you ran a phenomenal campaign. I am proud to be a Democrat at heart because of people like you. I thought it was amazing. One of the first things that I heard about you, I saw you at the Burgers and Brews in Salisbury. And a couple weeks later, one of my friends texted me and told me that you were physically knocking on doors yourself in Salisbury, Maryland. And let me tell you something, that is super commendable. So I hope I'm not jumping. I'm putting the cart before the horse and saying, what is next for Ashwani Jain?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's all about how do we change the game, right? And how do we actually carry on the values that we're campaigning on. So I appreciate you saying that, and I'm super excited to see all the great things you're going to continue doing. And I mentioned this, to Jared, but I'm here to support and help out and just kind of keep the work going. In terms of what's next, listen, right now it is catching up on my outside life, right? Friends, family, sleep, just the normal things, catching up on all the shows that I missed to stream. And then really just trying to get Democrats up and down the ballot to win in their respective races in November. And I don't say that in a cheesy way or, just because it's a good talking point. But really, I did not and do not want the platform I have created to just end with an election. So in the short term, that means helping Democrats win an up and down in Maryland for the November election. After that, I would love to continue working in Maryland politics. And if that means working for the Moore Miller administration, I would be honored to serve in that way. And then, one day down the road, run for office again, because politics is my life. It's not just what I do, it's who I am. I really do feel like that's the best way to make an impact in terms of creating policies and enforcing policies. And if there's an opportunity for me to do that in elected office at some point, I would definitely always be open to that.
Listen, one of the things that my fraternity, we told on a poem, it says, off the goal is nearer than it seems to a faint and faltering man. So, often our goals are closer than what we seem to believe. So just give me your insight about the fact that Maryland, for the first time, may have a governor of minority.
Yeah.
You know, all of us aren't white in this state.
Yeah.
And we love our allies and we love our Caucasian counterparts. But what does that mean to you? What does that mean that there's a possibility that Westmore, a Jamaican American descent, will become the next governor? What does that say to you? What does that say to your younger cousins, your brothers and sisters, your children, if you have any? I don't think you have any.
No.
Do you have any children? Right.
No, not yet.
Okay. So what does that say to them? What is
Yeah.
the message you think that is conveying to them?
Honestly, it's hopeful, it's inspiring, and representation matters. And in addition to the hope and inspiration that it can give to people who are people of color who do not see ourselves reflected in these positions of power and influence, in addition to that, I've been saying as well in the campaign trail that not only does representation matter from a hope and inspirational way, but it does impact policy. When you have elected leaders who are either making policies or enforcing policies that are going to impact your life, if they do not have similar lived experiences, then there's no way those policies are truly going to be equitable or even sustainable. And we've seen this in every election, right, for decades, not only in Maryland, but across this country. And that's because you do not have the right leaders in place who actually have not just read about an issue, but have lived through some of those issues. So that's why this matters. And again, it's not just some hopeful, wishy-washy liberal stuff that we always love to talk about, but it has concrete, practical implications for a person's day-to-day life, even if they're not people of color. And so that's my message that I say to folks in communities of color like ours, but then also to folks who are not in that community or in those communities, to show them, representation is super important for so many reasons.
So think about this. So of course we've got Westmore on the ticket. We've got Anthony Brown on the ticket. But what advice can you give to me? There has actually never been a Black person or a person of color, period,
Wow.
in the seat that I am running for. So what advice, as someone that was out on the campaign trail, that got to meet people, let's say this was our first time ever having a conversation. I had never seen you before. You had never seen me before. What is the advice that you would give me about moving forward into my political wall?
Yeah, it's, number one, don't stop focusing on specific issues, on those kitchen table, issues that are going to impact your constituents and the reason why you're running for your position that you're running for. People really want to understand, do you have a grasp of the issues? Are you speaking about them in a comprehensive way? How are you going to benefit my family and my life? The second thing is, don't let anyone tell you no or what you can and cannot do, right? I think a lot of times, whether you're a young person, whether you're a person of color, or you live in a rural area or areas that are typically underrepresented, we have a lot of folks telling us, that you have to ask permission to make a positive impact. You have to go and do X, Y, and Z in order to make your voice heard. And the reality is that's no longer the case. And even for ourselves, we have a lot of self-doubt, right? We have a lot of fears and anxieties, and we tend to put mental shackles on ourselves that prevent us from actually making our voices heard. And so when you know your value, you know your worth, you're doing things with empathy and kindness and clear intention, you'll actually be surprised at how much you could accomplish and how fulfilling the journey itself will be, in addition to the number of people around you that you may not even know yet who are watching your journey and are inspired by it.
All right, guys, I wanted to ask an infrastructure type question because Ashwani is an infrastructure guy. This week in Larry Hogan is mad that Transportation Secretary Steve Buttigieg has halted the Maryland traffic relief plan. And so here's a Facebook post that needs way more laugh reacts, basically saying, I'm extremely mad. I'm going to sue you maybe, and I'm extremely mad. And those are all direct quotes. So what is the Maryland traffic relief plan? Privatization of certain lanes for people who want to pay a fee. They can drive in a private lane. That's going to happen on 495 and 270. He wants to put more lanes 27 miles of a new lane on I-695, I-95. He also wants to do DC 295, Baltimore Washington Parkway. Yeah, MD 295, and he also wants to do smart traffic signals. I'm not really sure what that's about too much. But I want to know, how should we feel about adding more lanes onto our highways? What do you think about that?
I mean, it doesn't actually reduce traffic in the long term because demand only increases, right? I mean, this is something I've been talking about, and I know Governor Hogan's been pushing this for a long time. When you need to tackle the issue of infrastructure in a comprehensive way, right? It's not a piecemeal approach. It's not privatizing lanes. It's not adding toll lanes to make it more expensive for folks. It is looking at smart growth, looking at mixed use development, investing in metro, all across the state. It's making sure you're investing in more MTA mobility vehicles. It's actually requiring environmental impact studies be done before an infrastructure bill gets actually put on the desk of the governor. It's making sure that you actually study all the different options and try to get people off the roads when transit is available, and where transit is not available, making sure you're investing in more designated bus lanes and HOV lanes and all these kinds of these practical solutions that are done in other states. We've done research time and time again, but for some reason, this particular governor, is really just wanting to benefit his friends who are private contractors instead of actual residents and people of Maryland.
So, Mr. Jain, if I can jump in real fast. So, what you guys just talked about is not an Eastern Shore problem, because the problem that we still have on the Eastern Shore is that we don't have adequate public transportation whatsoever. So, please explain to our listeners that are listening from all over the shore, whether it be lower shore, upper shore, mid shore, what is something that you would like to see the next administration do to provide equal and opportune public transportation on the Eastern Shore?
Yeah, it's a couple things, right? One is the MTA mobility vehicles, right? These are just cars and vans that help folks actually get around. So that's really practical. It's encouraging more ride sharing opportunities like an Uber, like a Lyft, like those types of companies, which not only can provide more employment to residents and help them get some more money, but also help people carpool and kind of get off the roads a little bit more. It's also looking at sustainably expanding the Bay Bridge, while understanding that more roads doesn't actually do much to reduce traffic in the long term. Looking at the environmental impact study that was done on the Bay Bridge, where they looked at all these different spans and options, understanding that, okay, yeah, maybe that singular infrastructure, this large bridge, but having a designated, HOV lane, for example, might actually do a good job. If you also don't forget about the access roads on either ends of the bridge. And for the traffic in the rest of the state, because everything does impact, and it does impact sea levels and climate change and everything else, which the residents on the Eastern Shore are susceptible to, making sure that for the rest of the state where public transit is available, we actually expand it and actually carry through on sustainable solutions that make sense. It's better for the environment, better for businesses, and better for residents. But again, you cannot look at these issues in piecemeal. Just because it's happening or not happening in one part of the state does not mean those residents are not going to be impacted by things that are going on in the other parts of the state.
Right, and that's ultimately why I wanted you to, that's why I wanted you to explain that, because we see a lot of issues and we say, oh, that doesn't apply to us, but really it does. And sometimes it has to be broken down for us to apply. Now, I know that you've heard of the rumor mill. For many years, they've talked about building another Bay Bridge that would leave Somerset County and go over into Southern Maryland, like the Lexington Park area, which would actually boom and boost the economy on the Eastern Shore. Are you for it or are you against it?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, right, looking at the environmental impact studies that were done on the Bay Bridge, having that big singular structure, that expansion is the right approach. Again, not in piecemeal, right? And whenever you're going to create or expand a bridge like that, not forgetting about the access roads on either end of the bridge, which is typically forgotten about, and then does put a greater strain on those communities that are right off the bridge. So I do support that, and making sure that we also are mindful of not overdeveloping, and that we're also tackling affordable and available housing, right? And all of those kind of aspects are tied in together, and that is something that is not always spoken about, as you mentioned as well, by other candidates, by other politicians, which is why sometimes we keep having the same issues every election cycle.
You
Yeah, I just want to
mentioned
jump in for a moment because we had a question by Claire Boland probably about 5 minutes ago, and I don't want to alienate the audience. So Claire asked, you said that some people didn't vote for you because of your age. What would you say to young people specifically looking to make a difference or looking to get into politics?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for that. I would say to any young person who's feeling that way is go for it and don't let anybody tell you no. You have to do your homework. You got to know your value. You really have to develop a plan or find out what issues you actually care about. Because a lot of times, right, reality tells you what you cannot do. But if you really want to make an impact and change something specific in your area, in your community, you cannot accept reality. And so focus on what do you want to accomplish, not what you want to be. Like, don't look at the titles, look at the actual work itself, and then just go for it. And you'll find it's a lonely journey in the beginning, but people will come along and join you when they see that you have a plan and you're not taking no for an answer.
Yeah, I have to say, as someone who's 24 and running a progressive organization, while I didn't run for governor, it is helpful to see someone like Claire, getting involved. She's a couple of years younger than me, but to see, younger folks like Todd, like Tyler, like Claire, like myself, like Brian, and of course, yourself running for governor. You said you were 33 when you ran for governor?
32. I was 32. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's definitely like you said, like, at first it is going to, you have to overcome that, like, oh, you're the youngest person in the room. What do you know? But, if you keep at it, the respect will come, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Jared, I'm getting older and older. And it's a great thing. But I remember when I first started, really like just even attending Pocomoke City Council meetings back in 2015, I was 25 years old once I started doing municipal work. And it was just me, but as time has progressed, here I am 7 years later, and I've got great friends and I've got great connections. So, stick to the fight when your heart is hit. It has been times seem worse that you must not quit.
Absolutely.
Hey, I know you got to run, Ashwani. Before you go, what can we expect next from you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, it's really just focused all my efforts in terms of November winning and then figuring out how to continue that platform of policies and volunteers and crowdsourcing that we've created. Other than that, I'm still at my day job, which is program director for the National Kidney Foundation. I actually was working full time throughout the entire campaign cycle as well, and I'm back doing that still. So that's been really rewarding, and working in a community-based healthcare nonprofit that is actually serving the populations of Maryland and and folks who really are in marginalized communities. Super humbling and really exciting, and I'm proud to be doing both of these aspects because they are what make up my life and what I'm passionate about, and what all of us are trying to do also, just kind of keep pushing the needle and keep trying to make a difference.
Before you go, would you mind putting your information in the private chat just so we can, get up with you in the future?
Absolutely.
Because I really appreciate you coming on and all the work that you've done. Like I said, the story about you knocking on Michelle's door has always really been like for a moment, been like okay, this dude's serious. Like, he's out in the community, he's willing to work. So I'm definitely glad to hear that you're not packing it in, and you're, I'm glad to see you're still with it and still working, because you did do a tremendous campaign given, you're a first-time candidate, your age, and not doing fundraisers. So I think, as Tyler earlier, a round of applause for you on that. That was quite the achievement. So thank you for joining. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm sure people are clapping at home. You just can't see it.
No, I appreciate it very much, and thank you all for the work you all do. And yeah, I meant it seriously. I would love to connect with all of you individually later as well, and just keep me posted on how I can be helpful. And yeah, I'll love to be invited back at some point.
Oh, we definitely will invite you back.
All right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for joining us. We won't hold up your time any longer.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you all so much. All right. Thank you.
Okay,
I think we're good for the second commercial before going into part 2, correct,
Okay.
Todd?
Hey, and Brian, to answer your question, he did put
This is
that
Jane
information
Friedel.
in the private chat.
Oh, he
So-
did. Okay.
Ah.
Okay.
Yeah, he threw it in the private chat. So if you want to shout out his
Oh,
Twitter handle a little later, we'll get to it. But
Gotcha.
second commercial break, everyone. 30 seconds once again. We'll be right back.
The truth is out. On December 21st, 2020, Andy Harris, along with Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz, Louis Gohmert, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, plotted in secret to mount an insurrection, overturn a legal election, and keep Trump in power. We know what happened after. And now we know who was behind it. It's time for Andy Harris to come clean about trying to overthrow our government.
I also want to say, before he hops off, thank you for Councilmember Todd Knock, again, the Democratic nominee for District 38A, for joining us. He was not actually scheduled, but he was willing and able to hop on. We always love to have our good friend Todd jump on, so thank you so much, my friend.
You can stay on, right? Does he have to go? I like him so
Yeah, I
much.
gotta listen.
I like him
Listen,
so
I
much.
gotta go. I gotta go. I've gotta. It's hot in here. I'm in my office right now. I didn't turn on my air. I just flew up the steps when y'all sent me the link. I got to check in with some people from my campaign, so I gotta go. This was great. I hope I didn't overstep or anything like that. I hope you all enjoyed the questions that I asked. And
You're always a friend here, Councilmember Knock. If you want to join, ask for the link.
I bet. Yeah, I was trying to get my, y'all know, I'm gonna get my Gail King on, you know.
All right, we look forward to it, man. We won't interrupt you.
All right.
We look forward to hearing campaign updates soon, so please come back and join us in the near future.
Yes, sir. Sounds good. Talk to you guys soon.
Good seeing you again.
One thing I will mention real quick. So Todd is actually confirmed to be at our summer social as a speaker on September the 3rd in Salisbury. I'll put the link in the chat. One other thing before we jump in to part 2, Brian, and I'll hand it back to you. That ad that was just played for Heather, I'll also put that in the chat. One thing I definitely recommend people to do is take that link and share it with everyone you know. Andy Harris did 100% conspire with Donald Trump to overturn the election. He voted against certifying the election. People in our district need to know that. We need to be blasting that from the mountaintops or from the rooftops, because there are no mountains here on the shore, from now until Election Day. So I will no longer hijack the show. Brian, I'll toss it back over to you to get into part 2, and I will put those links in the chat now.
Well, I want to. Are we doing the commercial? Or we did the commercial? All right.
Yeah, we just did the commercial now. Oh, yeah, the Ron Johnson.
Oh,
Yeah, that. Sorry.
we're doing FDR, right?
Yes.
Does this work? Is it playing? We're trying to play FDR. Today is the 87th anniversary of the Social Security Act, by the way.
Yeah, so some brief updates while we get that working. So as you mentioned, one of the highlights of the progressive movement, the Social Security Act of 1935, which created Social Security, was signed into law today by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. We actually have a clip here of him signing the bill and the brief remarks from him after signing it. So let's go ahead and hit play.
Today, a hope of many years standing is in large part fulfilled. The civilization of the past 100 years, with its startling industrial changes, has tended more and more to make life insecure. Young people have come to wonder what would be their lot when they came to old age. The man with a job has wondered how long the job would last. This Social Security measure gives at least some protection to 30 millions of our citizens who will reap direct benefits through unemployment compensation, through old age pensions, and through increased services for the protection of children and the prevention of ill health. We can never insure 100% of the population against 100% of the hazards and vicissitudes of life, but we have tried to frame a law which will give some measure of protection to the average citizen and to his family against the loss of a job and against poverty-stricken old age. It seems to me that if the Senate and the House of Representatives in this long and arduous session had done nothing more than pass this security bill, Social Security Act, the session would be regarded as historic for all time.
I'm emotional, man. That was beautiful. I love FDR.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, today was the 87th anniversary of the passing of Social Security, the Social Security Act of 1935. This program, like you mentioned, I love FDR too, but in my opinion, the Social Security Act, along with Medicare and the Civil Rights Act, are the three big crown jewels of the progressive movement in America. Social Security lifted millions of Americans who face disabilities and are seniors out of poverty. Did you know before Social Security, 90% of senior citizens in America were living in poverty? Like, the sheer fact of what Social Security did raised millions of people out of poverty. So not only, is it good to reflect on this day, but it's also important to know that progressive candidates like you at the Lower Shore Progressive Caucus and nationwide are fighting not only to protect Social Security from the efforts to privatize it, but are also looking to expand benefits to keep up with the cost of living and other expenses that have kind of made payments not be as sufficient as they could be. So I'll hand it over to y'all for your feedback. But for me, this is something that I'm really passionate about because it's such a big part of our movement's history, and it was so overwhelmingly successful.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, it's one of the most, highest supported programs of all time. Best disability program, best child assistance program, best elderly program. And you know what? These evil Republicans, Lindsey Graham, Ron Johnson, just to name a few in recent history, Bush has tried to privatize it. Pence Trump have all talked about trying to privatize or cut Social Security. And I want to share a video of Ron Johnson saying this, but I don't think it's going to work. Is that correct, Tyler?
No, I couldn't get it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's a pretty similar rhetoric that goes back a long way, though. And, well, let me ask you, Jared, when you hear that Social Security, for example, is going bankrupt, that the inputs don't equal the outputs, and that we're going to have to cut back on it, we're going to have to sunset on this program, what do you think? What do you respond?
Well, first of all, I would say this is number one, that's not true. We can extend the solvency of Social Security by lifting the cap. So currently there's a cap that once you pay a certain amount per year on Social Security, the payments stop. What does that mean in simple terms? It means millionaires and billionaires actually don't pay Social Security tax once they hit the cap. That is millions of dollars that could be going into Social Security that aren't, because we want to give a tax break to Jeff Bezos, to Elon Musk. Why we have people who have disabilities, or people who are elderly and retired who need these payments to survive. The second thing I would say is the Social Security Fund has been raided in the past. President Ronald Reagan went into the Social Security Fund and stole our money. Like, this is not I know the GOP likes to say this is an entitlement program. This is money that we put in out of every paycheck. This is our money. This isn't an entitlement. We have the right to get that money back so we can have a retirement of decent living. The idea that we need to work until we're dead, that's not something that meshes with the idea of the American dream or what any civilized society should do. So what Social Security does is it allows us to put aside some of our money to make sure that when we retire, we can retire and actually have a good standard of living, hang out with the grandkids, do some traveling, whatever it is you want to do. So no, I don't believe in the garbage that's being pushed. I know Andy Harris also believes. There's a clip that we put up on our page that I'll need to find. When they were first negotiating Build Back Better, Andy Harris was ranting and raving about putting more money into Medicare and Social Security because he also believes that these programs should be ultimately abolished. So this is something, Ron Johnson from Wisconsin's pushing it, but our congressman right here, a multi-million-dollar congressman right here in District 1 who lives in Baltimore County, is trying to say we don't need Social Security. So those are just some of my thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, I think it's nonsense. I think it's nonsense. Well, the thing that the contrarians, that the Republicans are going to say, is that your FICA, what you pay out of your payroll tax, that's actually what goes to the funding of Social Security directly, in theory. This is what Roosevelt did. And he did this because he thought that at the time that this would strengthen the financing of the program. However, this rhetoric has been kind of used against it quite a lot because there's this really common mythology that the government doesn't have money to pay for programs that it pays for in its own currency. It's a really common rhetoric that people have. When you pay taxes, when you pay FICA payroll taxes, or when you pay taxes in general, your money is not going to the state or to the federal government to be accumulated and then redistributed into another program. That's not what it's for. Taxation is really deleting money from the economy. And when the government spends, it's spending money into the programs it needs to spend to. So the fact that the rhetoric that Social Security is going bankrupt or whatever, it's just nonsense, actually. The money is always there. It just depends on whether you want to spend it. There's not a restriction monetarily on if the government can afford Social Security or not.
Well, it's one of those things where we have $3.7 trillion to start wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and the Middle East, wars that have been going on my entire existence on this planet. But when we talk about, funding to make sure senior citizens aren't in poverty or to make sure people have health care or clean drinking water, it's always like, how are we going to pay for it and stuff like this. But those same questions are never brought up when, we want to give a tax break to Elon Musk. Oh, we want to start a war. That's the thing for me that anytime they make those kinds of arguments, I always like to either point to the war on terror or the tax breaks they did with Trump, which were literally just a handout to Elon Musk. I'm like, okay, we have money for that, but you're telling me, my 65-year-old uncle shouldn't be able to get Social Security after he worked for 50 years building houses. Like it's nonsense.
No, after
Yes,
you work for that
absolutely.
long and you paid into it, that's the problem. This is something that we paid into.
Yeah, it's not an entitlement. It is literally all money.
And then not only have you paid into it, but they're basically saying by the time any of us reaches the age to actually draw it, there probably will be no money left. How is that possible? What's your stance on that?
So they mentioned that. I know for a fact, very similar, like a perfect example of this, and forgive me if this is too in the weeds. I'll try and explain it as best as I can. One of the biggest concerns about this reconciliation bill they just passed in D.C. were the subsidies for the ACA Obamacare, which allowed millions of Americans to get affordable health insurance, were about to go up. And everyone was in a panic, like, this is going to end. Insurance prices are going to go up $2,000, $4,000 for people. There's going to be a massive wave of, uninsured. The government loves to wait till the absolute last moment to do something. I have no doubt in my mind, as long as we do not let the GOP take full power of the Senate, House, and presidency, that we will save Social Security. The reason I say that is that program is so important that if we were to allow, and I don't misconstrue me here, like the GOP has no problem doing this, but the Democrats, even the folks in the party like Manchin and Sinema, do not want to see a situation where you have millions of Americans who are senior citizens or disabled now being thrown into poverty because that program got uh, got deleted. Like it would be such a seismic shift to our economy and our nation that would cripple us. So I'm of the mindset, as long as we elect the right people, that's not going to happen. We just have to work to get there. Brian, I don't know if you have an opposite take.
Oh yes. I fully agree with you, and your example about military spending is a perfect example of how when the government wants to spend, like the fiscal limit is just the sky. You know what I mean? Like 800 billion, in military spending this year. Add another 50 million. Like these numbers are made up. I don't think people understand that we the world reserve, the world federal reserve, the world reserve is our currency. We have the biggest fiscal space of any nation in the history of the world. You know what I mean? So this rhetoric that we're always short on money, we can't afford this program, we can't afford that, we can't afford this, it's nonsense. When they want us to discreetly spend billions and trillions on military spending, they just do it. They just create that money ex nihilo out of nothing. The Federal Reserve does it. So I mean, it's really about what you spend your money on, and that's what we're trying to do in a democracy, is to spend it on the right things for programs that help people. This book that I'm sharing, by the way, is The Deficit Myth by Stephanie Kelton. This is a great book for debunking fiscal conservatism in general and the myth that there's not money. So that's why I have it on screen. It also has a great section about entitlements and debunking entitlement stuff. So.
Yeah, I know we're just now crossing the hour mark here. Did you want to give some closing thoughts on this, and then we can kind of give some closing thoughts for this week? I know it's late and people got to get up for work tomorrow.
Yeah, no, that's it. Social Security is not going bankrupt by any measure. It's one of the greatest programs of all time. And FDR, so this was supposed to be just the start for FDR. He wanted a full rollout of several other social safety net programs that were going to help people, but we never got that far, unfortunately. So Social Security, extremely based, keep it forever.
Yeah, I'll just say, moving in to close, celebrating Social Security as an achievement, the 87th year since it was created, is something that not only every progressive like, us at the LSPC, but every American should celebrate because of, like I said, reducing poverty among seniors by 90%, giving people the safety net they need to be able to function. It's just such a vital program. The other thing I would say, and this is why voting is important, why it's important to get out and elect someone like Chris Van Hollen to the U.S. Senate, why it's important to elect Heather Mazier, is these are people, when they get to Congress, they're not only going to support making sure that Social Security is protected, but if we can get rid of that cap I mentioned earlier, we can actually expand Social Security to make sure the payments keep up with inflation, to make sure that our seniors and those dealing with disabilities are not living under the poverty line or not at risk of being under the poverty line. This stuff matters in terms of electing good people. And I know for a fact, I've talked with them, I've seen their work, I've seen their platform. Chris Van Hollen for U.S. Senate and Heather Mazier for Congress. These are two people who are going to work to protect and expand Social Security. With that, we're currently reworking our schedule of Cracking the Crab. I know we've been off and on over the last couple of weeks. We're working on getting a more settled schedule with great guest speakers like we had with Ashwani Jain. We will let you know what's going on with our schedule as soon as possible. The last thing that I will say, and it was put in the chat by Claire, is if you're interested in volunteering with us at the Wacomico County Fair, make sure you click the link and sign up. We'd love to have you at the table. Heather Mazier is actually going to be there. We're working on getting Chris Van Hollen and some other folks there to be with us at the table as well. And then finally, make sure to get your ticket for our summer social on September 3rd. A great night of food, drink, and candidates. And all the money raised would be go to supporting progressive candidates here on the shore. With that, I hope everyone has a wonderful night and a good week at work. And we will see you next time.
Peace.
Tyler, you